Argentina's economy is on fire, turning in 8% growth, one of the fastest in the world. That's 5 times the growth before chainsaw-wielding anarcho-capitalist Javier Milei took office 18 months ago. Amazing things happen when you actually cut government spending. The numbers come from Argentina's National Institute of Statistics, and they're consistent with Wall Street analyses. A few months ago, I reported J.P. Morgan estimating 8.5% growth for Argentina this year. So the question is, how did he do it, and what would it take for America to get there? When Javier Milei came to office in late 2023, Argentina was on the verge of hyperinflation. Monthly inflation was running 11.9%, which is an annual rate of 282%, even higher than Biden. Real incomes were cratering at double-digit rates, poverty was spreading, and with it, crime. So Argentina's poverty rate was over 41%. Among children, it was 65%. Enter Milei, who slashed government spending by 1/3. That's equivalent to a $2 trillion cut in federal spending in the U.S. It involved laying off 48,000 government workers. In U.S. terms, that's like firing 500,000 federal workers. Now, the cuts represented nearly 6% of Argentina's GDP. In U.S. terms, that's $2 trillion. Yet the economy only contracted by 3.5%. In other words, the private sector immediately made back almost half of the federal cuts with jobs that are not waste and fraud. The first industry to benefit was housing, as Milei removed tenancy restrictions, ending a brutal housing crisis in Buenos Aires, where 1/3 of Argentinians live. Milei then slashed red tape in farming, energy, mining, telecoms, and pharma. Starlink was allowed in. Farmers were allowed to export. Rules opened on foreign investment to build factories and take over bloated state-owned companies. Price controls were removed. Those normally create shortages and cripple small business, and labor rules were loosened so companies were not afraid to hire people. The left, of course, exploded, not just Argentina's media, who is as left-wing as ours, but street riots led by laid-off government workers and literal communists who, as always, made common cause with government workers. The economic results has been astounding. Inflation is down to just 2.5% per month. Child poverty dropped by 1.7 million, with extreme poverty across population down to single digits, the sharpest decline in decades. Notably, Milei did raise the universal child allowance, replacing waste and fraud with actually feeding destitute children. More important, wages are now growing faster than inflation, up 30% in the last year, with the economy now fully replacing the government layoffs with new private sector jobs that actually produce stuff. So as next, brought to you by OnChain.com, Milei had a heck of a hole to dig out of. The initial spending cuts spiked poverty and made it deeper, now bearing fruit, and the next step will be attracting enough foreign investment to lock in the new Argentina. As for America, the main lesson is radically shrinking the government works. Unfortunately, it took a hyperinflation crisis to get Argentinians to elect politicians who would get it done. The trick is fixing it before the crisis. Going by America's Kick the King Congress, this is not happening anytime soon. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.